Okay. Okay, thank you so much, and I think we're all set and we're ready. We're online, so for all of those who are with us online, we thank you for joining us. So at this point in time, we're going to call the Town of Magnolia Park regular Town Council meeting of June 1st, 2021 into session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Alberry.
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson. I'm here. And Councilmember Green.
Here.
Thank you so much, and we do have a quorum. At this time, let us stand for invocation, please. Most kind and gracious Father, we thank you for this opportunity given to us to come and to act on behalf of those that we've been elected and appointed to serve. We thank you for this day that you've given us, and we thank you for this opportunity. We know that it is indeed an opportunity given so that we can attend to those who are not here, but who we represent. So we pray and ask that you would be with us in all things that we say and do. God, this process we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. A pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. You may be seated. This time we get right into our agenda. We have, of course, if you're following along with us, and online we have the agenda posted. So if you have that as well, you can follow along with us as we go through the meeting. At this point in time, we'll take a look at our agenda. We have these items that are on the agenda as listed. Are there any additions, substitutions, or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, there's no additions or deletions. We do have a deletion from when the agenda was first put out last week, and we did remove the final site plan consideration for flow rise. That has been removed. Other than that, there's no additions. I would like to remind council we have a budget workshop following the meeting.
Thank you so much. So with that, seeing that there's no deletions, and we have the amended or updated agenda, so that being made known, what is your pleasure as it relates to the agenda? Motion has been made to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Has been properly moved and second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. It is carried. And thanks so much. And normally we would have, no, apologies, items for our consent agenda. That we have none that are on the agenda. But if there is any items to be placed on the consent agenda, we'll entertain those now. Any items to be placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on in our agenda. Our next item is item 4, and this, of course, is our proclamations, presentations, and statements from the public. We do have item 4A, which is a presentation by SROAA, Capital LLC, new owners of the vacant lot 99-05, and by all of the subscriptions there as it relates to the PCN numbers. And we do have the applicants present. We're going to ask if you just come forward. Okay, and if you just state your name and address for the record when you get settled.
Can I take the mask off of the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon.
For the record, Josh Nichols with Schmidt Nichols. We are landscape architects, land planners, and representing Storage Rental of America. I do have a presentation. I have it printed out here, so I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for giving me the Nichols for the record. So this is the Storage Rental of America, and this is right across the street here from Town Hall. As it shows in your agenda, this was previously approved for a self-service storage, went through the special exception.
Closer to your mic. Thank you.
Oh, better?
Perfect.
Good. Okay. So this was previously approved for a self-service storage facility right here across the street on the north side of 45th Street. And tonight, we are really here as a introduction to the project. As you may know, the previous owner of the site has since passed away. So they went through the zoning process, they got a special exception use approval, and subsequent to that, it was going through final approval by the council, and the owner passed away. So the property was put up on the market, and our client, Sword Journal of America, ended up purchasing the parcel. With us today, we have Ben McFarland, we have Sean Dewhurst, and Bob Lovett, so they are all with Sword Journal of America. So if there's any operational questions you may have, I'd be happy to have them step up and answer those. So as you go to slide 2, this is just a quick overview of where the site is located. So it basically spans between South Place and West Place on the north side of 45th Street. It's about 1.9 acres. The current future land use is commercial with the current zoning as commercial low. So if you go to slide 3, we've got the previous approval versus proposed request. So as you'll see, most of these items are pretty similar in nature. The previous approval was for 100,000 square feet, which equated to 1.24 FAR. And where that FAR, I know that sometimes doesn't mean a whole lot, but that is a subject to one of our requests. So when this came through, the comp plan indicates a maximum of 0.5 FAR, and this project was approved at 1.24 FAR. So we have to go through and do a comp plan text amendment to allow that FAR to be increased to support the project, even to support what was previously approved. But we're kind of fixing the record on this one. So we've since submitted that comp plan text amendment. So it's not before you yet, it's not before you tonight or just yet. We just submitted it last week. But what that does is it puts basically an asterisk in for just commercial land use, that self-storage within the commercial land use would be allowed up to 1.5 FAR. While you would typically say, wow, that adds a lot of square footage to the commercial land use, typically with that FAR increase comes added traffic or added infrastructure needs for water, sewer. But that's not the case with self-storage. It's a very unique use. The traffic is very low. The parking needs are very low. They typically only have 1, maybe 2 restroom facilities, so the bathing load on the utilities is very low. So that's why we thought that, and Palm Beach County does the same thing, several other jurisdictions do the same thing, where self-service storage is kind of an exception to the rule. So that's why we think it's appropriate for the increase in the FAR, specifically just for self-service storage. The previous approval was a 3-story building, about 34 feet in height, and the building coverage, so that is your footprint over the entire property, is about 41%, and the building length was approximately 600 feet. So it took up the majority of the lots in question. As you can see, the proposed development is about 9,500 square feet larger, so it's about 109. We're at about 1.32 FAR, so just slightly above, but lower than the 1.5 that's part of the comp plan request. And we are at 4 stories. But again, this isn't like an office building or residential where you have these higher floor plates. So we're at about 46.6, and that's the overall height based on a flat roof and then with a parapet with some mansarding around those. And we'll show you, you can see some of the renderings as we get through. The building coverage, as you'll see, this is actually a reduction of about 8% building coverage because the footprint is been reduced. So that way we could provide access points on both sides of the building. Basically, so Storage Rental of America, they own and operate dozens of these facilities across the country. So they know how these function and what works and what doesn't work. The approved building doesn't work from an operational standpoint because someone would have been coming into the west side of the building and having to walk over 600 feet to the east side. It was not practical for someone to make that journey with their belongings. So what we did was shorten up the building, but that's why we went up to the 4th story, but shorten up the building to create extra open space, and what you'll see as we move along. and actually reduce the building footprint by about 8%. And then the overall building length, you can see, is about 390 feet versus the 600 feet. So we reduced that pretty substantially. On page 3, slide 3, you'll see the formal request. So these are, we talked about the first one, which was the comp plan text amendment. The second one is the self-service storage facility. So the special exception use approval has since expired. That plan has sat on the shelf for quite some time and has expired, so we have to get that approval again. So that's a request that we would need. And then we have 4 variances, very similar to what was requested on the previous application that was approved, is the parking. 25 spaces would be required by the code. We're providing 8, which is pretty common. You typically have the county and most of the jurisdictions in Palm Beach County are at about 5 to 6 parking spaces for self-storage. They just don't need a lot of storage because there's not a lot of turnover on a daily basis. We have front and rear setbacks that we'll be asking for, as well as the building height. The code allows for a maximum 2 stories, so we would need a variance as well for that. Some of the community benefits, and we'll look at these graphically here, but just to kind of go through them quickly, is we're reducing the building length to create this additional green space at the corner of South Place and 45th Street. In doing that green space, you're going to have a detention area and more additional landscaping. We're reducing that building by about 200 feet in order to create that area. We're looking to provide a community sign for Bryn Mawr for the community, and that would be a nice entry feature into the neighborhood there. So that would be provided at the applicant's cost. We're also looking at a municipal electronic message sign to be provided by the property owner to the town for outreach purposes. So that could be for the use of the town to put, tonight's meeting could be shown on that electronic message board, and that would be shown for all those in the town that pass through 45th Street. West Place right-of-way dedication. So we were required to provide additional right-of-way for Meritage so they can make their connection to 45th Street through West Place. So that's shown on our site plan and will be dedicated as we move through the process. We think that the architecture is much improved from the previous application. It gives more of an office feel, and we're also going to be upgrading the landscaping along Blue Heron.
All right, just before you move, we'll do a pen and ink correction. You mean 45th
Oh,
Street?
sorry. Yes, 45th Street, yes. There are other projects on Blue Heron, yes.
Okay.
Excuse me there. So as you'll see on page 4, you can see the architectural rendering. So this is one of the renderings as you're looking east at the north side of 45th Street at the building. So you can see it has a nice office type feel. It's definitely not an industrial or commercial building. You have really an office type feel here. Going on to page 5, again, is a view from east looking west along 45th Street streetscapes. You can see those upgraded palms of significant height and also along the right of way. Also, we've provided awnings and fenestration to create the mullions in the windows and also those the awnings, as you can see on the first floor, and the shutters on the second floor. And also gave some roof facade textures too. Going to page 6, this is really just kind of an overview, bird's eye view of what it would look like from the air. And as you can see how it fits in, so you've got the access point on the north and on the south side there, or sorry, east and west. So you can see how that fits in. The last page is where we have the e-messaging signs, and these are different from the municipal sign that we were talking about. These would actually be affixed to the building, and they would be an opportunity for revenue share with the town, and could also be utilized for town messaging as well. This is just another opportunity. But these messages, they're not to scale on this, so we did want to make that a point. But these are for the town as well as for other folks that may advertise on the building. One thing that I wanted to point out, going back to one of the previous rendering, say, page 4 or 5, is that what we did is the rear of the building, we actually took all those units that are on the 4th floor on the rear, which is facing the residential to the north, and we took out that set of units across the entire back. So that creates what they call a sky plane. So you'll have more of a view to the light, to the sky, and it just prevents shadowing into those rear property yards. So that was something that we heard, and wanted to make sure that that was incorporated into the plans. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I look forward to your feedback on it.
This is just an architectural rendering. It doesn't, run across the street.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding that.
Right, so this is just a,
In front of my door.
No, and I didn't.
right, just as you're coming out of out of South Place, just to your right. So that vacant lot.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, so anything else at this point in terms of the presentation?
Again, we're looking forward to some input as we move forward through the process, and I really appreciate your time this evening.
Oh, certainly. Okay, we'll see if there's any council comments at this point, and then we'll go and see if there's any staff as well. Okay, so any council comments as it relates to the presentation? Any comments or questions? Councilwoman Green?
I just want to make sure I'm a hands-on person. It's right across the street here, right?
Mm-hmm.
The traffic light.
Well, you have the two vacant properties, this one to the west.
This is the vacant lot right here.
Correct. Excuse me. I'm sorry, any other questions, Councilwoman Green, at this time? Okay, now, Vice Mayor, you have some questions or comments?
I'm just like,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
as it was with the 3-foot structure, I was like, that's big, anything we have in this town. And now we're going to 4 feet, I mean, four levels, 4 feet. I'm just like, that's an awesome structure for this town. Give us a while to absorb that idea.
Vice Mayor, put your mic down. You have it up.
I said, oh, okay, I'll just restate myself. I said, as it was, the 3-story structure was a bit much for this town because we don't have anything that tall in Magnolia Park. And now we're going to 4 stories. That's going to take a while for people to absorb the potential of a building that awesome size, right facing 46th Street and West Place. I'm in the middle of it.
Okay, anything else?
Not at the moment.
Councilwoman Green, you have a comment or
No.
question? Okay, if not, we'll come back to it.
Mayor Albury, my fellow councilperson, I can say again, here I go again. What's interesting, well, disappointing to me, is anytime this property comes up again, I'm just going to say, sir, you just, whoever purchased it, as long as I'm living, I'm going to tell you the truth, you're stuck with it. I'm disappointed because anytime anyone wants to put anything on that property, how many times this has been before this council to put something there? We usually notify the people in the community. I'm the only one here who's in the community.
Understood.
And I'll say the same thing I said when they came before. I think this, Mayor, how many times they've tried to build something on that property since I've been here, since you've been mayor?
Not that many.
Hmm?
Yeah, not that many. We've had, just quickly, we've had conversations regarding doctor's offices, medical facilities, but the layout in terms of just the traffic being able to.
I just don't want, I don't know whether he heard me say this, the same thing, I'm gonna say it again. I live there. I was just telling the town manager, matter of fact, I think I was the first council person here today. And the reason I'm the first person here is I have to leave. I live right here. The traffic light, that's my house. And to make sure I get here on time, I have to leave at 5:30 because of the traffic light. And you think that I'm going to be in support of you putting another one of these in front of my door again? No, sir. I have nothing against you personally. So if you hear it in my voice, it has nothing against you.
And I point well taken.
Okay.
And I think that if there were previous requests to develop this site, maybe for office or medical use, those are very high traffic generators.
Sir, let me say this so you can save your voice. The only way I would support this, and the mayor knows, and that's why he won't have to hear me talking too much tonight. If I'm dead and gone, it'll be the only way you'll get a vote for me for that. So you don't have to explain anything to me. I'm just letting you know now. So don't even try to talk to me.
All righty. So let's see if there's any other comments or questions. I'll take Councilman Green. We
I'm
appreciate
through.
it. Okay. Vice Mayor?
No, I'm not really having a question, I made my comment, and I'm just, it just seems to be an
Okay.
awesome building for such, area, but like I say.
Vice Mayor Johnson, I hear you. And I just wanted to go over a couple of things of some of the site constraints that we're working with. So, you know, this parcel as it sits is only about 100 feet in depth, so it's very shallow. You know, as discussed, there may have been other proposals in the past, and any of those other proposals would have been commercial in nature, right? And what happens there is it's difficult to put the building on there and still circulate around the building. And then also, any of those office or medical uses are going to be very high traffic generators, right? So then you're putting trips onto a roadway that's already constrained. The beauty about the self-storage use is that it's very, very low traffic generator. It's a quiet use. It actually will prevent a lot of that sound coming into the neighborhood, which is good. And I understand what you're saying about the 4 stories, but what I think we're getting as a return and a benefit is that we're reducing the length of that building. And yes, it's going up by 1 floor, but what you're doing is you're creating that green space, creating a nice open area at the entrance to Bryn Mawr. Also with the community sign, that green space that you weren't getting with what was on the books. So you may be giving up 10 feet of height, but what you're getting is a much nicer community feel and benefit, and you know, for the overall community and the town, I think.
I hear what you're saying, and, it's a good sell. I'm just going by, as I was thinking of the previous, you know, the car dealership just to the west of that is 2-story. I didn't have a real problem with the 3-story too much because it wasn't that much more. Everything else is 1-story except across the street, those are 2 stories. But to go from 2 to 4, it was just like, oh. It's gonna take a while, it's gonna be a shock. You might get some reverberations from the community. So we'll just have to find ways to make it a pleasant exchange.
And that's why we're here.
I love the fact that you're gonna have a nice green space at the corner of the light. Then you're gonna put a nice sign for Bryn Mawr on the corner, that's very good. I like the commercial opportunities for adding a commercial space signs, a great sign for Magnolia Park, that's marvelous. But I'm just saying, I know the community is very concerned about the atmosphere. And I'm just taking a breath, thinking it's going to be 4 stories. So, you may have to hear a little bit for a while. I'm not saying it won't work.
Understood.
I'm not saying it won't.
And that's why we're here
But
early.
it's,
We want to talk it through.
yeah, it just raises my hair a little bit on my arms. To see that big building there. We'll see. We'll see how it works.
Okay, so I'm going to segue from there.
Mr. Mayor,
Just as you, I'm sorry.
hey, may I ask him a question?
Okay, you have additional questions? Go right ahead. Sure.
If you ever thought of any ever thought about it, you know, I'm hoping one day that 45th Street, when we keep talking about we can't get out, Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to ask our commissioner, Mac Bernard, if they can put a flashing light right here. They had the worst accident a couple of days ago, right there. They've had so many accidents there. And I feel guilty because I put the traffic light there. I'm hoping that the county one day will, not far away, will expand 45th Street. We'll make it wider so we won't have to keep having so many people there. That is what I'm hoping they will do with 45th Street, which will also support, I hope, the future development of this town, of the Prahala property up there. Not to put something up there that's going to take away from the future development of it. That's what I'm looking forward to, because I live here.
Okay, now let me just kind of segue from the comment made by Vice Mayor. One of the things, and just as information, the owner and proposer, developer, and I had a meeting, and we did speak about just the aesthetics of the building, the height of it, and did say that there would probably be heartburn as it relates to the 4-story proposal. I can understand from the standpoint, from a business standpoint, in terms of just reducing the actual, what I would call the surface footprint, right? Sort of bringing that in, but then when you do that, you squeeze it up. And so you went up 4 feet in order to obtain the same space that you would have if you had gone out an additional amount of space. So I understand, wanting to, at least from an architectural standpoint, have the larger green belt and vegetation and such. One of the things, of course, is that when you look at, for instance, a 4 foot of height, your line of sight is sort of, it's really knocked off, particularly when you're coming around a curve and so forth, and you're seeing something that high. You're what we used to call in graphics, your whole perspective, right, is a little different, because now you're looking at something that you can't look above, right? You wouldn't be able to look above a 3-story building either, come around that corner, but at 4 feet is a little difficult to of course, we're going to continue to massage it. Let me get to my question. I was trying to sort of state that I understand the concern stated. Now, if you did something, and I really appreciate it, you had sort of the comparison from the previous proposal to the proposed development. Now, one of the things that happened is that when Mr. Beebe owned the property, he had come in, and we did the very same thing. We did the presentation in terms of what he was proposing, and you saw that plan. That plan worked. It was 3 stories, but however, it worked. It worked for him because, and I guess the only way to really say it is that because that was the amount of space that he was requiring. Right? So whether he did his analysis, business analysis, and so forth, whatever factors he used, he came to the conclusion that I only need this much space because.
Council members. So the previous project, unfortunately, had a developer that had never operated or owned a self-storage facility in his life. I've built and operated several of these, over 100 of them. You can't do what he was doing. People won't walk 600 feet from one spot to the next. And the difference of the size on square footage basically is actually only about probably 4%, 5% bigger. So it's the structure total volume is not much different from an actual perspective. So from the numbers, if you were to run a pro forma on it from a business perspective, you would think if you'd never operated or owned one of these that he was building a project that would be successful. But unfortunately, you'd end up with a guy defaulting where he'd not even be able to pay his taxes by the time he was done trying to get people to walk a 600-foot hallway with all their stuff. And so that's why we put in 2 elevator banks on each side. And really the difference there is we're putting in a nice office as well, because I know that was something that you guys liked about it. So we made sure we kept the nice office entrance, and we just created a way to make it easier for people to get their stuff around. And I really thought the idea of buffering the community with a lot of landscaping there was a much better trade. And New York City figured this out a long time ago that if you're driving down, a road, you don't really see much higher than 2 stories if you have nice landscaping and buffering in the front of the building, and it's properly set back. You're not really going to see those upper floors, and so that's why we step back the back side of the building off the neighborhood so that it didn't change the light perspective or the visibility perspective for the community behind. So it will look like a 3-story building, except for on the street, of course. And so but as you drive it, you won't feel much difference with the nice landscaping up front.
Okay. Now, 12 foot on top of 36 foot is very visible, very noticeable. Right. So if you would, and of course I'm not an architect, but if someone, okay. So within your profession, if someone said build something to scale, what does that mean?
To scale?
If you built it to scale, that just sort of translate it for us.
I can't translate that.
Okay.
Everyone's perspective
Is a little different. What would be yours?
Something that's viable, that has proper landscaping, has some nice architectural features, and is appealing to the eye.
Okay, that's the aesthetics of it, but if you're, for instance, well, at least in my understanding, and we're just sort of talking at this point, like I've seen 7-Elevens, in fact, we have one here. That's pretty large. We have one in West Palm about the same square footage. Then I've seen some in Lantana that's half that size, right? Because the property dictated that it could only be built so big, but it looks just like a 7-Eleven. Right? It's just that there's a smaller square footage to it. Right? For instance, this one here would probably have about 3,000 square feet, I think it is, roughly, something like that. The one I've seen in Lantana on Dixie Highway has about 18. Right? But it still looks the same, and it's still a 7-Eleven. It looks like the one in West Palm Beach because they built it to scale. That property couldn't hold one that was twice that size. They could only build, and of course the city of Lake Worth would only allow them to build it, so that they had the proper space, parking spaces and various other things as it relates to building a business. So that's in terms of my interpretation of what it means. It means that you take the land that's there, right, and you can build whatever. The model doesn't even have to change. It's just architecturally, you're just going to shrink it, much like you squeeze it and moved it up. What you're basically doing at this point in time, using my definition, is sort of building it to your scale. Because from a business model, I won't even begin to argue that point. You are in the business, and so you fully understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. But from an aesthetic standpoint, what the council is saying is that, oh boy, the 4 foot is visible from a business standpoint, from an architectural standpoint, from a technical standpoint. One would argue that 12 feet, it really isn't that much when you consider that we're going to be doing this. And I agree with you, the aesthetics are much better than what would have happened. The actual traffic in terms of getting from one point to the next, this proposal versus the previous proposal, I agree with you, it's much better. However, absent of the fact that from a business standpoint, that being for yourself, right, that this could actually be built on the same, you could still accomplish the same type of aesthetics, the same type of green belt, the same type of architecture, without having it go 4 foot. It would just be a matter of building it to scale, if you're following my logic.
With 7-Eleven, I don't know the business model.
But that's my point. So,
Gas, they got traffic,
but my point is that it's a different business. But my point is, and I think you get the point, is that they still built the 7-Eleven. It just wasn't twice the size, because the ground around it wasn't allowed to be quite that size. So I mean, we won't get involved in the minutia of it. We're talking about the building of it.
One idea.
Okay.
We built one on Congress that I would consider to scale on the very.
I'm sorry, to what?
To scale.
So you do know what built to scale is?
I'm just saying, if
Okay.
you want to compare it to something, it's the same exact size essentially as this, except it's almost the same height because our parapets are bigger, and the city of West Palm wanted towers on each corner, where we reduced those and didn't do the towers on each corner. You can go and see it. It's a 3-story building, but it's actually 4 similar height as this structure.
You're referring to the one on Congress?
It's on Congress.
Just across from the mall.
It's across from the mall, yeah. And we did the exact same thing, elevator bank on each side. And it's clean, and there's lots of nice landscaping. We would do very similar project here. What was unique about that site was that it was only 100+ feet wide, and so they couldn't put anything else on it. And storage doesn't require any parking, really. I'm happy with 5 parking spaces. That's all I need. One person to visit the office, an employee, and 2 people to back in trucks at each elevator, and we only get 1 to 2 visits a day. So it's not a busy business from a visitation and concurrency perspective.
Well, absolutely. And I like the fact that it's low foot traffic. What if, and if you got to use an educated guess, maybe you still remember, what is the height of the one on Congress? Just your best educated guess.
I would guess with the towers, it's in the...
Minus the towers.
It's in like 42 to 44 range.
Okay.
Not much dissimilar to this, from the height of the tower to... It might even be taller, to be honest with you.
Okay. Go right ahead. I have some other things, but you can go ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned it because I wanted to ask you about the facility there on Congress. And I remember when it was built. When it was being built, I'm like, what kind of monstrosity are they putting over there? And that was because all the buildings next to them were even along there. There were 3 stories, but they weren't as tall as this building was right up next to the roadway. That was my initial impression as I saw them building it. Now I have to say now, I barely noticed it. But the initial shock was there. Also, there were no residential concerns there like there are here.
We got a little slack from the brand new Jack Nicklaus golf course. They weren't a big fan.
Okay. Then you're familiar with that anguish.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's why I'm saying, I was swallowing the 3 foot knowing that we had similar structure right around the corner down the street there in Congress. To see it as a 4 foot, that's going to be even more of a blow to the community. It does not aesthetically appeal to me to be that tall of a building right here in our face.
Right. Yeah.
So that's just how I feel right now. Like I said, it may, through time, ride waves to adjust to it. But right now, I can't really say I'm anxious for it.
It'll also, when you consider the density of the areas around it. For instance, you may mention of New York. Driving downtown New York, everything is tall, right? So you never see anything. You don't see the Hudson River until you start clearing out, and right. So, however, everything here is 1 story, and then you have the 4 story. So again, your sight of that whole perspective, your sight of vision, is a little different with that. And we're not going to continue to beat up on the 4 story. I was just trying to make the point that yeah, there be some concern, and as we sort of go along, we're sort of just kind of setting the groundwork now that yeah, it's just not something that I don't think council, in terms of just the palatability of it, is something easy to swallow. Also, and I'll come back to that if needed. But also, when you consider the aesthetics of the building, we'll go to page 4. Right. Now, one of the things, of course, is that in your presentation, you made mention of the fact that you have this sort of office look. I say this as gingerly as I can. It doesn't look like an office. Of course, in our discussion, in our meeting, we talked about having this sort of office kind of feel to it. It looks industrial. And the reason why it does is that look at the frontage of it that's facing 45th Street. We had talked about the fall window, the fake windows, much like you have on the west side of it, which is the one that we're looking at here. That sort of gives the appearance of windows. I know that when we talked about perhaps the signage, with the electronic signage and all of that. The proposal now is to put it on the wall, right? I guess because of the green belt and the vegetation and the other aesthetics that was going to be done near the Bryn Mawr entrance south place. But when you look at this, and we have to be honest about it, it looks like an industrial building.
Yeah, so there will be windows on the front if we don't put
Okay.
these signs on the wall. So, just so you know.
Okay.
It's just the way that they quickly remove the signs just to show one without it, for the presentation purposes. So, if you go go with the Congress. It's easy for me to approximate it.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
One more point, I appreciate what you said about the residential side of the building. You said you've got a sky
Yeah, it's stepped back on the.
setback. What really hits me the most is your corner ends, I guess what you call those east and west corner ends. They just seem to look like a statue or something that's just. Is there a way you could scale the ends so it doesn't have that awkward 4-story statuette look like in smack there? If you could scale it up maybe from 2, 3, 4, something creative that looks a little bit more appealing, because this just to me is just like
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, you're referring where?
the ends, the two.
Stepping back the corners.
Yeah. Instead of like, you see you've got the roofing around the red and you've got the tall windows there. I mean, is there some way you can redesign that to look a little more appealing? I mean, it's just, I understand you need space for your business. I understand you want to accommodate.
There's a lot of things you can do with corners,
Yeah,
with
but
neighborhoods, so you can come up with something.
It just doesn't look appealing to me. Well, it doesn't the community at all.
Okay. Alrighty, let's see, there was something else that I did have. So no, you had me mention as well as going to 1.5 FAR, and the reason for that is just so you have the ability to do something different, or are you actually proposing to do something different?
So the 1.5 is just an even, a round number. We're really shooting for 1.32.
1.32?
So the previous project was at 1.24, and we would be at 1.32. The 1.5 was just so that we weren't, because this is supposed to apply to all uses in the entire town. So we didn't want to have something so project specific. That's the only.
Right.
And we'll,
Green is trying to say.
okay, you have something? Okay.
Yes, sir. I'll be very short. I don't want to beat a dead horse to death, but I'd just like to say something. And I know you're in business to build your storage places, but just because we may be a small town and we're industrial, I'm speaking personally now because I've been here for 30 years, and I have a lot of dreams and a lot of envisions for my neighborhood and my people. And I may not live to see that how that property developed, but that is my dream one day. It's just not for Mangonia Park, it's for all of Palm Beach County. And what I envision for that does not mean that I want to see warehouses or affordable houses or whatever surrounding that property, because this is a minority neighborhood. I'm going to be honest with you. I envision that right now, just like I look at City Place. And I envision that one day that property will be able to make Palm Beach County proud. And I'd hate to see that day come before they get there and somebody come and decide they want to purchase it and build, and what turns them away is they are surrounded by warehouses. Now, the storage, not warehouses, I'm sorry, same thing, storage place, when they built the storage right there, I never forget, Mrs. Albury, you said one day, it's pretty, you said, I'd like to move in. And I was hoping that it's a nice storage facility. And I think they did a beautiful job when they built it. You know, and I'm proud of it. And we are only 2.5 square miles wide, long, whatever. And I'd hate to see this little town full of nothing. We may be industrial, I'll say it again. But I hate to see this little town. Everybody who wants to build a storage facility, oh, we will go to that little place down there that has nothing in it, but we have a lot of potential. And I hope one day that we will be able to reach that potential, and I think we will. And this is Addie Green speaking. Since you called my name, I'm going to say it again so you won't forget. And I pray, whether I'm living to see it done again, but it will not be surrounded by warehouses and storage houses. Something like the Kravis Center still fits this city, even if it is industrial. That's what I envision. And that's why I said to you, I will never as long as I'm living, want to see storage facilities on the property. We have one, and I hope that's the last one. And I promise you, I won't say anything else. Thank you.
Okay, okay. All righty, back to the questions. Now, with this, and let me just state for the record, I have no issue with what's being proposed, only from the standpoint that, that I haven't, there hasn't been a whole lot of activity in terms of development for the property, simply because of the trajectory of it, how it's situated. The depth of it just doesn't lend hand to building a house or anything else. You're coming off of Main Street, and you're trying to get into it, and it can become dangerous. We know that 45th is a busy and dangerous street, particularly coming around the curve. And this is a low traffic, which is the kind of building that, or type of facility, not necessarily a warehouse, but a low traffic building. It would be the only thing that would be probably best for that, for those two parcels. So I have no issue in terms of a low foot traffic facility. And since we're talking this one here that's before us, one of the things that we talked, that I want to go to page 3, where you have the community benefits. Okay, bullet 5, and this is professional office architect and upgraded streetscape along 45th Street. Now, specifically, what I want to do now is go back to one of the variances, just up the next bullet up, where you have where you're proposing to have the setback now at 12 foot from the required 30. Now, the purpose of that is because is the width of the building now a little different than what the initial proposal was? Depth, for your purposes.
It's pretty much the same width of building from the previous proposal to now.
Okay, alrighty, and if you remember that plan, what was the setback on that plan?
I'd have to look. I don't
Okay,
have it.
was it more than 12, as far as you remember?
Let me see. I think I may have. Let me take a look.
Okay. Okay, so just while and if I remember correctly, I think it was more than 12, but we'll verify. So, but just while he's looking, you're now looking to reduce it, whether it's by a foot or 2 or 3. The purpose of reducing it would be?
To try and reduce the height, and keep the height down. So we're just trying to get more FAR on there without making the building too long.
Okay, but now the additional height was supposedly to accomplish that.
If you were to keep the same width and reduce the length, then it would even make the building, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to get as much, biggest footprint as I can without making the building so long people won't want to store there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's understood, which was my position before, that, yeah, you want to try and capitalize on the foot space.
There,
15, okay. Okay, and so the justification here, or at least the reasoning here for going from 15 to 12 would be as stated? You're trying to maximize the amount of foot space? Okay, so as you stated, and that still holds true now, since we know that it was 15, that the reason, or at least the purpose for doing so would be that you can capture more foot space, accomplish more, or realize more foot space?
Yeah, I mean,
facility?
it's pretty clear in order to make it the site work when you build vertical, like he was trying to get to 100,000 feet, that's why he stretched the building so long. It's a similar issue, we're trying to stay around 100,000 square feet.
Okay, and since we have a reference point, and that was your Congress facility, what's the setback over there?
Yeah, and then in West Palm,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the setback anymore. I built it 3 years ago, but I can look into it.
Okay.
It was a different, they redid the street there. I had to
Mhm.
redo the street because they had, the only part of Congress that hadn't been finished with the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
So there was already a plan in place there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You stated earlier you built quite a few of them, so just from a reference point of your experience in building, you would just educatedly, you would say it's
Yeah,
about,
the one you built Miami, there's no setback.
okay, but this one here, in West Palm?
My guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just your educated
Somewhere-
guess,
Somewhere between 10 and 15.
between 10 and 15?
Looks about that.
Okay, and this building you stated earlier is about the same height as what you're proposing to build is about the same height?
Yeah, it's on the end caps that she's talking about, Mrs. Vice Mayor.
Mhm.
The corners, they wanted to see height, they wanted to see caps put on the top, so it's large triangle, sort of pyramid style, Mediterranean style caps. Those
Okay.
are pretty tall.
Okay, and the caps I think are decorative, and I have no issues with the caps. But now, again, we're just comparing the one on Congress to what you're proposing here. The roof line, the very top of the roof line in West Palm Beach is about how tall? 4 feet, 4 stories still?
I think the mean.
The height, not how many stories, but the height.
Yeah, the mean parapet is probably in the high 30s, and then that tower feature goes up to the low mid 40s.
Okay.
Yeah, Sean thinks the tower, or kind of construction thinks the towers over there
Mhm.
are 53 feet.
Okay, and that drops to about what? 42? All righty, and I think that's the only other question. I'm just gathering information for myself. All righty, you're proposing 8 parking spaces?
The other thing, Mayor,
Mm-hmm. Oh, go right ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the other thing to put into consideration is that, there are certain size units with, then you have a hallway, then the units, so it's all a block setup, right?
Mhm.
So you can't really undulate from that block setup, so we have to make sure we have the outside block, the hallway, the inside, the hallway, and then the outside. So, that's why we end up, it's not to maximize the square footage. I mean, obviously, there's a certain number you have to get to for leasing requirements, but it's really because of the way the block is set up. Because if you have that 1 foot shorter or 2 feet short, you're in a whole different realm of those leasable units, right? And so it's almost like a building block setup. Is
Okay.
how they work.
All right, now we have to be honest about maximizing foot space because we have a lot of facilities, storage facilities here in Marigonia Park, and you could actually build something smaller than that, but then it would be cost effective for you, right? So we do want to maximize the foot space, right? Because it allows you to have the different sizes and all of that. So, okay. And I'm sorry, honest wasn't the right word. I wasn't inferring that you were not being honest. Just a figure of speech.
Yeah, we definitely recognize it's a numbers game, absolutely.
Yes.
But
Okay.
I think, if I'm looking at a longer building that isn't feasible and could potentially go underwater,
Mhm.
I would rather have something that does make sense, that we know can work, that we've seen in the field, it can operate successfully, create some additional greens, but all those other benefits. I think if I had one or the other, I'd want, and if we can, obviously, we're gonna massage this, we're not even in the process yet, but I think we wanted to lay the groundwork out for you, get some good feedback, and maybe there are mitigation measures we can do. We're at step 1, we're not even to step 1.
Correct.
So,
Right. Okay, and there we go. That's where I want it to be. There you go. Thanks. All righty, so with that, I have no other questions at this time. As you stated, we're sort of just working our way to step 1 at this point, and it was a presentation, so if there's any other questions from council, comments from council? If not, we'll see if staff have any questions or comments, and then we'll go to Biddy, see if she has anything.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Green, just to reiterate, this is what we call a soft presentation. There's no vote tonight. And certainly, as we move forward with this, there will be some mailers that go out as that affects property owners. So this is just a presentation so they could get feedback and so you can get a little bit more familiar with the project. That's it.
Okay, thanks so much. Dave, you have anything at this point? I know this is just a presentation, so, okay, you have to put you on the spot. Okay, all right, thanks. Amity, just from your standpoint?
Just a real quick, and Josh probably knows I'm going to say this, but when we talk about the previous approval, Mr. Beebe, he had gone through preliminary site plan approval, but because of the Enclave project and Meritage Homes, he was required to redesign to accommodate the West Place entryway, so he never resubmitted that new preliminary. There was an initial preliminary, but there was no final site plan approval. It was just preliminary, and it was subject to revision based on the new development that was coming in. So I just wanted the council to understand that.
Well, thank you so much. I noted, and that is correct. I do remember that. So, okay. Anything else from?
No, we're still held to that dedication of that space as well.
Okay.
To our property, so.
Oh, right. And certainly, we appreciate that. To get it
We're
accomplished.
allowing them to lease the land for free right now to get their project going so they can build that road.
Okay, great. And we really appreciate you honoring, the agreement that was made with the previous owner, so we really appreciate that. And that's why we're here. That is not why. We're always here to work with you, but we really, appreciate that and wanted to say that for the record. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Well, certainly.
Yeah, I just want to say, I just want this to be a successful venture. I do appreciate the fact that you said you're shortening the span from end to end, because that was one of my questions. How was someone going to walk all the way from one westward entrance to the east end of that long building? Even at the size that it is, it's a long walk to the building. So, I mean, I do appreciate that part. And I definitely appreciate the greenage that you can put on the east side of the building on the corner South Place, yes, there's the light. So that'll be very nice to have that, an added scenery there at South Place. I'm just hoping that some way we can soften the edges of the building, because I know you're going to get backlash, and I want this to be a successful venture.
Okay. Now, just before you go, I don't see the duck pond that we talked about and the paddle boat thing. So, okay, that was the reason for the 4 stories. Then, okay, thanks so much. Okay.
Florida, we'll get some ducks.
I guess there you go. Okay. I thank so much. If anything else from staff or council. Okay. If not, thanks so much. We appreciate you coming and presenting to us, and we'll continue to massage this. We do want to see it develop. We do want to see it happen. It's just how it happens, and so we can move forward. Okay. I thank so much. We look forward to working with you continually. All right, thanks so much. Okay. Okay. I thank you so much. So if you're following along with us online, we're going to move now to our next item, which is item 5, Palm Beach County League of Cities Committee.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a quick calendar placeholder for you all. The next general membership meeting is June 23rd at 12 p.m. It is still going to be a conference call. The speaker is Mary Blakeney, and the title of the presentation is Hurricane Preparedness for Elected Officials and a COVID Update. So mark your calendars. There is an RSVP requirement. Membership meetings have been still conference calls, so this month is still the same.
What time?
12 p.m., ma'am.
I didn't hear the time. Okay.
I didn't say it. I'm sorry. My apologies. Thank you.
You know how my hearing is.
I left it out, sorry.
Right, thanks so much. We'll move on to our next item, and we have item 6A. This is ordinance 2021-01. Of course, this is a first reading, amendment chapter 14, license and business regulations. Okay, committee?
Thank you, sir. I'll read it by title. This is first reading, as you say, of ordinance 2021-01. It's an ordinance of Town Council of Town of Mangonia Park, Florida, amending chapter 14, licenses and business regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Mangonia Park at section 14-32, business tax levied, to provide for a 5% increase to the business tax rates for all of the town's existing business tax classifications in accordance with state law, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 14 licenses and business regulations shall remain in full force and effect as previously enacted, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, and authority to codify, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Thank you so much. You've heard it read by title. In a meeting, just briefly, we're looking to do this because...
Sure. This is allowed by statute. You did it last time in 2019. Every 5 years, with 2 conditions which you've met, you can raise your business tax rates by up to 5%. So this is not unlike your previous increases, which also conform with state law. This is just doing the allowed 5% increase.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments as it relates to the proposed ordinance? Any questions or comments? Ready? And just reading through, the last time we did it was June 18th, 2019.
Yes, sir, 2019.
Okay, and we're proposing 5%.
And that's when you can do it. That's why you did it in 2019. It's because you can do it every other year. So this is consistent with the timeline. And you'll see in you're all familiar with this, but in in the ordinance that was prepared, you have double underline. That's the new numbers with the 5% reflected.
Where are we?
Yeah, 6A.
6A, thank you.
Now, we decided on 5%, and not that I'm opposing it. We decided on 5% because we can go up to 5%, or the rationale was, that was the rationale? Because that's the ceiling, so we just went to the ceiling of it?
You can exceed that.
Mhm.
And all of the figures in here are complete, starting.
Okay.
Okay.
But she's correct. The statute allows you to go up to 5%, but not beyond that.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure I understood the rationale. We could have done 3%, but we decided 5% because that's what we can do, and so we're going to propose it. Okay. Right, other questions or comments as it relates to the proposed ordinance?
Is that's the general decision that we made, is with the 5%. Have we ever made decisions for less than 5% to do just 3 or 4%? I don't know that I can remember.
And Vice Mayor, one reason we wouldn't do that is because our tax rate is basically maxed out. So we can't raise that, so where we can raise other fees and rates, that's what we
Right here.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing that there are no other questions or comments, what is your pleasure? Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm so moved that we approve the amended chapter 14 license and billing regulations for the 2021-01.
Motion has been made to approve upon first reading, ordinance 2021-01. Is there a second?
Second.
Has it been properly moved and seconded, or are there any additional questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
And Mayor Alden.
Yes.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. Our next item is item 6B, and this is resolution number 2021-07, approving the transfer of funds from the general fund to the utility fund in the amount of $153,520, as referenced in the CDBG approval payment to Hinterland. Ken?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Councilmember Green, this item, if you recall, over the past year, we've been doing the Braemar sewer expansion on Jeffrey and Sherwood. So this money coming in is from the county. This is the first half of our reimbursement. And when it did come in direct deposit, it came into the general fund. And of course, we want to reimburse our utility fund because that's where the funds were spent initially. So this action has already been completed. We just need for you to ratify that. The amount of money, and we will have another payment for over $200,000 coming in the upcoming months. So we'll probably be doing that again. But this, it does belong in the utility fund, and the utility fund does need it. So we're asking you to ratify this action by staff.
Okay. Thanks so much. Just before we go to council, Amity, you have anything?
No, sir, not on this item.
Okay. Council comments or questions? Okay. Vice Mayor?
Just for clarification, you say it came in, the funding came to us in the general fund account. Is this the way they always distribute the funds in general fund?
Yes.
So then we always have to ratify it to go into utilities?
You usually don't do a resolution, you just do an internal transfer, but to be more transparent and to make sure that the minutes reflect the action and they're deciding to go with resolutions.
Okay.
With the manager that we currently have.
Oh, okay.
For, you know,
Let me just transfer it back. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none. Okay. So with that, motion, please.
Yes, I move that we approve resolution number 2021-7, approving the transfer of funds from general fund to utility fund in the amount of $152,521.
Just a, okay. Righty, I'm sorry, just so that we have it correct, on the exhibit 6B, we have -08, do a pen and ink, should it be 07 or 8?
and for the record, it's $153,620. I just noticed that it's 5. So, my apologies.
Okay.
Where are we?
resolution number,
The resolution number is correct, the ordinance is different.
What's that?
The resolution number was 2021-08 originally, but it's really now 2021-07 because the 2021-07 was the final site plan approval. So it is actually, it gets reduced down to 2021-07.
oh,
B.
okay.
Okay,
6B,
16.
6B.
okay.
The original agenda reflected final site plan approval that was renewed. So I forgot to change the resolution.
Okay, so just a clarification for the record, and if you're following on online, on the first page of the agenda, item 6B states Resolution 2021-07, which is correct, and the amount should be 153,620. And then on the last page, 6B, Resolution number 202- it should be 07. So we'll just do a pen and ink for our purposes, and we'll state it for the record that it is 07. Okay, any questions? Okay, so the motion standing, and that is, a motion has been made to approve resolution number 2021-07. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Has been properly moved and seconded. Any further questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
and Mayor Alder.
Yes.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. And then we'll move on. If there's no miscellaneous business, we'll now go to our reports. Ken?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council Member Green, I'm going to defer this time to the workshop, if that's okay, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or if you want to get with me one-on-one, that's fine too.
Okay. Alrighty, so noted. Are there any specific questions we can, or you want to reserve those for the workshop? Okay, thank you so much. Alrighty.
The report as submitted, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Are there any questions for? So, okay, as submitted. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Okay, Amity?
I also do not have anything specific unless you have questions of me.
Okay. Any questions for Amity? No. Legals? Okay, thanks so much. And we'll go to our council members. Councilwoman Green, you have anything?
No.
No? Okay, Vice Mayor?
Yes, I just wanted to ask for scheduling another one of our days of prayer walk. June 6th was our prayer walk, our last prayer walk on 2020. So I wanted to see if this 2021, if there's a date in June that we could look at for a prayer walk. Like, you think we can make that a unified effort, because we still are standing in the need of prayer.
Okay. So that we can get to the workshop, at the next meeting, firm date, we have allowed the town manager to take a look at the calendar with the date, recommended date, and we vote that date at that time, or do you want to try and establish one tonight?
Well, I did ask for a date, I think the Friday works best for us. Do you want to look at the 18th? Friday, the 18th of June?
The 15th?
18th, Friday, the 18th of June.
For the prayer walk?
That's a good date. I won't be here, but don't let that.
Oh, no, you've got
No, I mean,
to
that's,
march with us.
that sounds so weird. No, if that's a good date, you should go with it. If council so desires.
I'm just asking. I know for me, that would be better than the 11th. So, but I know Fridays, we would have more success on Friday morning. Walking, if you choose any other date, that's fine with me, just long as we can. I don't really think it have to be a council meeting date, it should be closer to the weekend, I think. What is your pleasure?
That date, I have a placeholder for that date, so I may not be available either. But again, as Ken stated, we don't want it to stop.
Let's move to a date that we can have the support of the council and staff.
Okay.
And we look forward to your arm-to-arm support.
If we're looking at a date, and just in terms of a date that works for me, it's actually be no sooner than the first weekend of July.
Whoa,
Yeah, I have some pre-scheduled things.
Is that good for you too, Town Manager?
That's fine for setup, yes.
Okay, let's look it over a little more and have a firm date on our next meeting.
Okay.
We will have a meeting on the 15th of June.
We are actually going to have a special call meeting next Tuesday, and so we're probably going to ask council to cancel the meeting on the 15th.
Oh, okay.
That's not etched in stone, obviously, but
Okay, well, let's see if we can get a date set for our next meeting, if it's next Tuesday. So that we can go ahead with planning. I would like a broader participation from the town, even other parts of the community. We all need to be in unison in prayer.
Okay, and I agree. And from that standpoint, I think pushing it out a little bit might be better in terms of just planning and trying to get more participation, give it some more advance notice. Yeah. As I think about it, it would probably be better if we pushed it, that way we can get the notification, everything else done properly.
Okay, we'll finalize that by next Tuesday.
Okay, all righty. Anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay, and I have nothing other than to thank you each for being here, and we thank you so much for your participation. So with that, if there's a motion for adjournment,
So moved.
is there a second?
Second.
That's been probably moved in second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. It is carried. Thanks so much. We'll take just a moment and we'll get ready for our budget workshop, and we'll take 5 minutes. Okay, I think so.